brought to you. So much content out there.
Okay, and finally I want to introduce you to Isaac Josephson with ABC, and he's going to put it all together for us. Isaac, thank you.
I just got up a red eye this morning, so if you'll forgive me for sitting down. That'd be great. So I want to start with something that Andy said a little bit earlier. More than half of people get their news from friends and family. Now, as a corollary, more people get their news online than from newspapers now. And online has not surpassed TV yet, but I think we all know that it's headed in that direction. So what am I trying to get at here? The second screen or the third screen is really becoming the first screen for news, especially with the younger demographics. So how does a broadcast news network maintain viability in that space? ABC News has been actively experimenting with social media for a while. We were on Twitter pretty aggressively in 2007, and our relationship with Facebook also dates back to 2007 when we were their exclusive partner for the elections as they were shaping up in late 2007 and into 2008. Over the years, we've experimented with a lot of different things. On Facebook, we have worked with them on original programming. In 2010, we had a town hall that was exclusively available on Facebook.com and abcnews.com. We have also experimented with full story distribution, and we were one of the first sites to get the social toolkit up there. On Twitter, we've run the gamut there. We've said anybody can and should have a Twitter account and post to it. We focus more on brands, we focus more on personalities, we focus more on producers. And I think I can kind of give you just a quick summary of where we are today. But I do think that ABC News was pretty lucky early on to have that kind of early adoption tag, and I think that's probably owed to the great mix of people that we had working there. It was kind of a mix of younger folks who were just naturally tuned into that, and old refugees from Usenet and Noel who saw the inherent value of many-to-many communication. So where are we now with social media? We kind of think of social media in two ways. First, as a news distribution outlet, which kind of goes back to that stat that more than half of people get their news from friends and family. The conversation's going on Twitter and Facebook, whether we're part of it or not, so we choose to be a part of it. The second way that we see it is a little bit more traditional marketing, viewer-user outreach. So, for example, we run Facebook-only contests for GMA. I think we sent 4 lucky users who registered by liking GMA on Facebook to the Pirates of the Caribbean premiere in May. We did a similar thing for Cars 2, I believe. And then something bizarre with Angry Birds, which is sort of related. So what are we trying to accomplish? Well, a few things. Obviously, everybody's interested in driving traffic back to the core properties, and we're pretty happy with the growth that we've seen there. About 8 to 10% of our traffic comes from social media at this point. That's up from a year ago, and we hope it'll be up a year from now. About 5 to 10% of our online video views come from people posting those videos to social media, Facebook and Twitter. We also, of course, want to engage in that conversation with the users and the viewers because we think it makes our products and our broadcasts better. And we think that that sort of open line of communication engenders loyalty. It's also nice, especially for ABC News, to be able to reach out to social media communities to help age down the demographic. So that's kind of a quick summary of what ABC News is doing in the social media space.
Alan? All right, thank you. Why don't we open this up to some questions, and then I'll redirect to our question. Do we have any Any questions out there? What is it? Oh, behind you.
Who's there?
Hello? Hey, nice. Two major events are coming up next year, and I guess maybe this is towards news and USA. The election and the Olympics. How do you guys see the impact of social television on those two events?
Jesse, you want to go first?
Sure. I think that it's going to be the area where people are going to get all the great content in real time that's happening that they can't really view because it's either happening at a time, or it's time delayed, or it's they can't access that content because of certain carrier restriction. I think it's what NBC Sports does in the real-time delivery of content is pretty fantastic. When you're trying to do the live coverage from the last Winter Olympics with the kind of silver light download and being able to watch streaming from any different one of the cameras was a great first step. And I think what they're going to roll out this upcoming Olympics is going to blow it away.
So on the election side, I think that there's no question that conversation about the election actually already is taking off in social media. We are still putting together our social media roadmap. No doubt it's going to include amped up versions of things that we've already done in the past, more deeply integrating Twitter widgets and Facebook social toolkit widgets into our site so that we can bring the conversation back into there for passive consumption of social media. We will be actively, just as we are now, posting and working with our social media partners to get ABC News content out there. I said about 8 to 10% of our traffic comes from social media now. I bet that's going to probably double at certain points next year. January, February of 2012, and October, November.
Any other questions? Come in.
Hi, I'm Seth Tapper from Second Screen Networks. I'm wondering how you guys see it transitioning from the second screen being a platform to drive more viewers and more participation in what's going on TV to becoming a business in and of itself. So where your organizations see enough scale on the second screen to be investing to make that a revenue center, a profit center for the
So I think that there's a couple hurdles that we're facing right now. One of the first ones is the normalization of CPMs. Basically, the value of an impression on air is not the same as the value of an impression online or a value of an impression on a mobile device. Until sales, people and agencies really come to a common kind of monetary decision on how that can really get priced out, it's going to be really hard to step away from live viewing. I mean, that's where all the television networks are making their money. It's that plus C3. So to basically say, it's all about the second device or all about over the top and get it whenever you want, it's going to blow up the entire model of what's happening in the entertainment space. So we just need to be very careful about how we do that. There are a lot of companies now and a lot of entertainers like USA that are making money on the second screen, that are selling sponsorships and integrating organically or integrating in some brands into those experiences. Those are the brands that are leaning forward and get it and understand that it's not just about a banner or a 30-second spot anymore. It's about engaging with their user and viewer.
And just for what it's worth, our platform allows developers to monetize the canvas in any way that is fitting for their business. So within that canvas space, you can have ad tags, you can have sponsorships. So we're facilitating, supporting the revenue model for the second screen.
I'm going to chime in. I think when it comes to the second screen, one pitfall is the potential of walled gardens, and I think that networks are going to keep some or most of their prime content to be unlocked through the ecosystems they strategically develop.
In reviewing from today, and discussing this before, when you were going through the slides, I suddenly realized we hadn't touched independent television production, how the networks are such as spin above main networks and from the slide statistics that were taken, and from my own personal experience, I don't really watch network TV on my social networks. I am very much into indie and independent. Do you, where do you see that going? And to the networks, how are you going to incorporate a lot of the independent content into your regular stream? Because I think we missed that independent component that drives social.
Independent, also user-generated media, I guess that's part of the equation.
Yeah, I wouldn't really say we've missed it at all. I think that's what YouTube has been doing for years. They've been making a lot of money doing it, and YouTube is probably one of the most social platforms that's out there. If you look at all the video consumption happening, and Andy probably knows more stats than I do, but most of the videos that are happening on Facebook are from YouTube embeds, from people posting things. So independent programming, there's a ton of independent programmers on YouTube using that platform socially to spread the word of what their program is about.
From the conversation today on the transformation and the second and third reader for social, the TV per se. I mean, I can go on my website, etc., and get my YouTube, but extending that screen, and I guess Facebook has a lot to do with that. They're all scattered. What is Facebook doing, or do you have plans to pull that resource together and things like that?
I mean, we're a platform, so I mean, we welcome anybody to work on our platform and to embed content.
I think the point here is that the networks are kind of like the pilot fish, and the indies are going to flock around. I think that seems to be the model here. I want to just step back a moment. I just want to make sure we get all the business questions out the way. But I think one of the ways that we could help us conceptualize this going forward is tell me a little bit about how you folks first got into the social media equation. You're coming from where you are. You know, at what point did you see social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, making an impact on your marketing and programming? And how did that sort of take shape both at ABC and USA?
I mean, I think I touched upon this in my opening spiel, but for us, it's been kind of a prevalent thing for many years. A couple of reasons for that. The first one is the reality of news spreading across platforms and people transitioning away from networks and major news organizations being the primary curators of news and towards their social networks as being those primary curators. And then the second thing is we had, you know, a bunch of folks internally back in 2006, 2007 aggressively monitoring this and saying, you know, aha, you know, this trend that was that's emerging now, I'm familiar with it. I saw it in an earlier form in the early 90s on Usenet and the late 80s on the Well. So, you know, we've been thinking about this for a while.
So following your audience across emerging platforms.
I'm sorry?
So basically, it's about following your audience across emerging platforms.
Exactly.
Okay, fair enough. Jesse?
I think it's also not just about following. I thought it's also about creating that destination. When USA relaunched the brand in 2005, a huge component of what that initiative was basically a campaign called Show Us Your Character. And we basically built a private network, Facebook, in 2005, inviting people to come in and share their character. We put people onto a gigantic map, an interactive map, that you can then put in your location, zip code, tell us a little bit about yourself, upload photos and videos, make friends. We have 300,000 people basically join showusyourcharacter.com, and it really set the tone to say, you know what, people were into this. They wanted to share what type of character they were, and when you have a massive television network like USA driving people from their air to go participate in something, we know that we got that traction, we got them to a destination. We didn't have the foresight to think at that time that Facebook was going to get as big as it did. Had we been able to partner with them earlier on, I think it probably could have gotten a lot bigger. But since then, we've basically evolved that model into what Facebook is and have established ourselves on Facebook in a way that we're still inviting those people to come in and share their character. You know, 9.5 million fans across our different Facebook properties. We're keeping the community growing from there.
Okay, great. Any other thoughts?
We have one question that came in from Twitter.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Well, actually, it's just a comment that came through. The Netflix CEO joins Facebook's board, And the question is, what's next for Netflix social efforts, or how is Netflix going to play with Facebook?
I mean, Netflix has said that they want to be aggressive in the social space, so we'll have to see what happens. It's 3 hours old, we'll have to see.
Come back next week.
Yeah.
Jesse, can you give an example of how brands could potentially sponsor a show beyond just their ad buy? What's the way if there's like, I love that Twitter example of people spend 25 minutes a day. So how do they integrate it where it's not sort of like, fantastic, love the show, and then maybe you should buy soap, where it's relevant.
Yeah, so a couple of things that we've been doing, and we pride ourselves on basically doing organic integrations of advertisers into our products. So you'll notice, on White Collar, Ford is a very prominent, advertiser in the show. They've been advertising it since it launched last year, so there's 4 seasons basically now. And it's not just on air, we're also integrating Ford products and their kind of brand attributes into our transmedia experiences that we're developing. 36 Hours was a transmedia game that we built for the last season that launched in January that incorporated gamification, leveling up, Facebook and Twitter as social means to have the writer Jeff Easton tell a story. The Ford vehicle was actually used very prominently in shooting live action HD video. You utilize the car attributes as kind of gaming mechanics throughout the experience that lasted 7 weeks. We kind of launch an installment every single week. That lasted for about 19 minutes to 32 minutes per user session, depending on how quickly you can make it through the overall experience. So basically what we're doing is we're taking one big episode, chopping up into 7 parts and making it an interactive experience. So the car, because it plays such a pinnacle role in how you perform all these activities through the experience, becomes a conversational point. So when you're talking about it, people are naturally talking about the Explorer that was featured in this interactive experience. They're also talking about, we use the Ford Fusion tree as you kind of progress through the gameplay. We took the tree when, I don't know if anyone's ever driven a Ford Fusion, but your dashboard has a little branch, and the more economically you're driving, the kind of more your branch grows. That branch actually showed your progress through the game. So every single week you came back and solved more little mini games within the overall experience, more leads would show up. So there's a lot of brand impact and recognition. Ford was looking for time of engagement with their brand, so we tagged everything up the yin yang. Everything from that Ford Fusion tree to all the different videos to mentions and all the banners that are on there. And they basically came away. They've sponsored White Collar, like I said, 4 times already, and I think they're going to come back for more, hopefully. They're pretty happy.
So they're happy. Is it more of a branding play with the higher price stuff that works better? Because in general, I'm guessing, there's less scale on the TVs or that mentality. So I think you guys are more of a brand awareness or how a brand is.
Well, I mean, this experience had about 250,000 people come through the experience, and then the brand recall, as we did surveys of some people coming out, was about 30% higher, people recognizing the Ford cars as attached to the show, and favorability was a lot higher as well. So for them, they got a much more meaningful metrics by utilizing all the platforms together than just running a 30-second spot in the show or just having the integration of the vehicle in the show as well.
All right, thank you.
That kind of media buy in order to be, like, do they have to be running 30-second spots for you to have a conversation like that?
I mean, it's very expensive to build transmedia experiences, so we like to try to do the 360 sell-through with kind of premier sponsors. I'm never going to say no to money, but I'm always going to be upfront with how much things really do cost, because the margins on them are very small.
And also, it sounds like if you ask that question, then they're going to say yes.
All right. Oh, we have some more questions. All right. We'll take them as they come in. I think we can start up here.
Okay, I'll ask one.
We'll go with how far and fast Mo can get. This is, by the way, a true transmedia experience here. We go for your question to.
I have a question for Jesse, I'll make it short. One, and only one. So I did see in the chat app that you allow the people to actually ask questions on the content they're watching. So I was curious to know if you actually do data analytics or you actually propose questions for them to ask, or if you're finding questions having more relevance to the brands that you're embedding in the actual content.
It's Nietzsche, right?
Yes.
Yes. I remember you from the Education Summit.
Yes.
So if I heard clearly, I couldn't really hear the whole question. with a lot of the questions that are basically injected into Chatter, we're using two different filters to kind of look through all this material so we can get a lot of data and analytics behind it. We're using a platform called Echo that's basically bringing in all of the tweets and the Facebook posts and the YouTube videos. And then we're also sending it out, all the Echo feeds, back out to Trender. And Trender is then sifting through everything, identifying trending topics, geographic information, demographic information, so that we can then visualize things on Chatter. What you saw earlier was just the first iteration. We're going to start basically showcasing some very cool visuals. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with Bluefin, but they're doing some very cool visualization of social activity and the social graph. We're going to start unearthing a lot of that to show people what's actually happening, New York versus LA, who's actually trending higher while watching a show. I think people love to see those engaging aspects.
So you have these apps on Android now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We got one over here.
I feel like people could argue that advertisers might be losing out with the rise of social television, because times where viewers would be more likely to look at the ads like commercials, they might be spending more time interacting or looking at their secondary device and like tweeting. How would you combat that argument?
Again, I think it's the smart advertisers, the ones that are doing those 360 approaches, that are putting their ad not only on air, but also on the mobile device, so that if you are in an engaging atmosphere, that the user is seeing that ad. The thing about advertisers is that they're creating fantastic content every day. There are some great ads that are out there. So if you can match great content with other great content from advertisers, you're going to keep the user engaged in a playful way, in a meaningful way for them. I don't think all advertisers are losing out on this. I think, if anything, it's a huge opportunity for them to really get in front of somebody that they can take action with. They can then really, from their phone, download information, QR code, whatever it may be. 90% of people watching television are doing it with a phone, in their pocket or on their lap. So it's the medium that we want to get people to activate on.
I think in terms of content, if you look at branded virtual goods versus normal ones, I think people spend an extra $1 to get the Hershey digital chocolate bar than the ordinary one. And also looking at activities, branded activities such as a poker cam spotlight or some other type of action in the social community has tremendous opportunities for all kinds of brands to have their name on it.
I think like Jesse and USA, ABC News has seen, we see second screen experiences or social media as more of an opportunity for advertisers than a threat. We have also seen that engagement metrics, if you do it correctly in digital and mobile, are high, and recall is very high.
So apparently it's an enhancement, not a competition, but clearly the big word here is transmedia, second screen, building and following. These are going to be big issues, and I think synesthesia will be a big word next year, but we'll get to that next year. We have time for one last question.
You had to be up there.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't you just project?
Oh, it's make this guy run. He's going to start playing racquetball.
I had asked this question earlier, but they told me to bring it back here. I asked this question earlier, but they told me to bring it back here. Devin Borsing and Paramount. The question was about gross rating points, and how are you guys addressing the granularity available in digital marketing versus the, I don't want to say the laziness, but of the marketers who just want to go with the gross rating points. How are you combining those two to give them a standard way of looking at what they're seeing?
What was your question? Gross rating point.
Yeah, that's a tricky question. I think the standard, and again, it kind of harkens back to the industry as a whole. The recognized standard is really the Nielsen rating. All we can do from our side is inundate advertisers and the public with as much data, solid data that we can. Our data is actually real data. I mean, Nielsen is a survey, poll-based kind of insight into what's happening, who's really watching your show. So when you have real information, real IP addresses from companies like Canoe or what Comcast is doing, they really know who's watching what. And then you combine that with what's happening on the social space, If you can package it all together in a great way to say the lift on Twitter, the lift on, conversations happening on Facebook, the conversations on check-ins on Yetloon and Miso, as well as the on-air viewer, the VOD viewer, the EST sell-through viewer, C3, C7. If you put it all in a package, you can really prove yourself. An interesting fact that we've uncovered last year was that Law & Order SVU is the broadest reaching show that's out there because it's basically been syndicated so many times on so many different networks. NCIS is the next one. The next one after that is actually Burn Notice, one of the USA shows, and we didn't understand that at the time, that it has a much higher recall and review rate than any other show, except for those two I just mentioned before. So it's really up to us to really all work together to figure out how we can start showcasing this data in a way that's meaningful for advertisers, that they're going to say, hey, you know what, I don't care if it's the number 10 show over the night. I know that I got a huge engagement with those users. It got brand lift for my client. It signed up 50,000 people onto our product versus we just ran a spot, we saw 500 people come in the door. You're going to get those advertisers that are raising their hand for that.
All right, I think that's a pretty comprehensive answer to the burning question. But I also want to say that you mentioned a lot of new companies, a lot of startups that appear today, and I think that represents opportunity for those startups. So just want to close on that note, close up on a startup note. So how do you reach out to these startups? How do you find them? How do they reach out to you? I'm curious about the ecosystem of the startups in this medium. How do you folks deal with them, reach out to them and work with them?
For us, startups are incredibly important, and we have a developer relations community, a developer relations team that works with startups around the world, and we have developer garages to try and facilitate experimentation and development on the platform. And so, because we know that some of the more interesting and forward-leaning and innovation is going to happen through startups.
Jesse, how did you find all those folks you mentioned?
Obviously a lot of it is through networking, going to events like this. I met the people from Social Guide at South by Southwest, and here they are, and, we're gonna have a meeting afterwards. And, that's kind of the way that a lot of these things happen. Following a lot of the trades are also ways that you see things happen. One company does something very cool and interesting. We immediately want to go see what that was and how we can leverage it. As well as, tons of teams of people. The NBC tech team is fantastic, and they have their eyes and ears out everywhere. Whether it's gaming, whether it's social, whether it's mobile, they really know their stuff, and they're looking at the small little companies as well as the giant ones too, because people are taking notice when on Mashable all of a sudden you see a big partnership happening between Facebook, NBCU teams up with XYZ company out of nowhere to do something. All right, it's got impact. Or buys them for 30 million.
Well, on that promising note, I want to thank our speakers for joining us here today. I want to thank all of you for coming.